Today's going to be two things. It's going to be a follow along class for planche, but it's also my training session. So I'm going to be doing real sets, real repetitions. For the longer holds, I am going to speed it up so it's not boring, but pause the video if you are following along. Do the progressions that you can do. If you need to use bands, use bands. Just make sure that you're using the band across the hip and you have the attachment point for the band above your hands. So it's pulling you up and forwards. Don't have the attachment point over there so it's pulling you backwards. I'm using P-bars, but you could do exactly the same thing on the floor. I'm just going to warm up first of all, just trying to get into protraction. So least amount of energy to get there. So just trying to get from a mobility point of view as high as you can through the middle of your shoulder blades. So we don't want to be in this position. We definitely don't want to be collapsed in that position. I'm trying to push up as high as I can directly on top of my hands. So I'm pushing up and away, and then I'm going to start to push a little bit forwards. I'm just going to use that as a warm up. So protraction, leaning forwards, but not too much energy or too much weight in the hands, but lots of focus on that pushing up into protraction as hard as I can. And then this is going to do two things. It's going to warm up that scapular position. It's going to warm up the elbows, but it's also going to warm up the biceps and the wrists. And then if that feels okay, I'm going to start to ramp it up even more. I'm going to go up onto toes and push forwards. So I'm really trying to get as much energy as I can going up and forwards and not just forwards. I don't want to collapse in this position. So my goal with the planche is only to take the shoulders as far forwards as they need to go to counterbalance what's happening at the back. What I don't want to do is collapse down like this and go really far forwards and basically run out of forward lean, especially on those earlier repetitions or positions where I'm more in a tuck position and not in advanced positions. Okay, so exactly the same now, but let's go for a hold. So I'm going to do 20 seconds in this position. Like I say, I am going to speed these up so it's not boring if you're just watching. So protraction coming forwards around the upper back. Ideally turn the toes over and have the hip low enough so it's not taking the movement away. So 20 seconds there. Nice, good rest. Now these are the P-bars that I'm using. I've got them slightly turned out at the moment. See how they're slightly externally rotated? And I might increase that as I go. So I might start to turn it out even further like that and not have them there. The trouble is with the fixed ones is they're like that, and even worse, sometimes they're in that internal rotated position. I prefer slight external rotation. You see most people when they do the planche, they will turn their hands outwards. So the P-bars allow us to do that as well. I'm also going to play with the distance apart. I'm not a big fan of a very narrow position. I like to go slightly wider. I feel definitely stronger in that position. But fine tune that, and also fine tune left to right. You might find that your right side needs to be more externally rotated than your left and vice versa. I'm now going to go into a 10 to 15 second tuck planche hold. If you don't have a tuck planche yet, keep your toes light on the floor, but still try and mimic the exact tuck position. So you want to have the knees as close as the chest as you can be, so you're in the tightest tuck you can be, and don't let the legs come out behind you in any way. So coming forwards, you can push your arms into your knees, or your knees out into your arms is the other option, and try and have hips in line with shoulders. If anything, I like that slightly higher than slightly lower. Now with today's follow along, I'm going to do more of a pyramid type training. So what that means is I'm going to slowly decrease my time, so the time I'm holding, but I'm going to increase the intensity of the position. So I'm going to slowly make it harder and harder by taking the legs further away towards that full planche position. As it becomes harder, I'm going to reduce the time. I'm playing it a little bit by ear, and I'm resting for about 1 to 2 minutes between sets. So my next position is going to be like the tight tuck, but I'm going to move the knees a little bit away from the chest. So it's going towards the advanced tuck position. Remember with the advanced tuck, the knees come all the way out to the underneath the hips, which creates a flat back. So I'm going to go to somewhere in between for around 10 seconds. And a good way to monitor that is just see where the knees are relative to the arms. So your tight tuck, your knee's going to be inside your arms. Advanced tuck is moving away from the arms all the way to that position. Just be careful the foot doesn't go too far backwards, because the lever arm is going to make a massive difference. So the longer the lever arm towards that full planche, the harder it's going to be. Now instead of resting, you could go into a front lever and superset the two. But for me, my main focus is planche at the moment. I'm not too worried about front lever. I'm sort of ticking that along, but I'm putting way more effort and time into the planche, so I'm training it by itself today. Now I'm going to go 7 or 8 seconds in the advanced position. I'm going to try and get those knees level with the hip. Really good practice with the planche training or any of your training actually is when you rest is to look at what you've just done. So if you can video yourself and check your positions, then you can make any modifications in the next set. Because a lot of time with the calisthenics, the handstand movements, what we think we're doing is not actually what we're doing. So the next position I'm aiming for is the frog position. So think of the frog like in between the tuck and the straddle. So it's somewhere in the middle here. So the knees are still bent, but I'm starting to extend the lever arm in that direction. Now, whichever variation you're doing, whether you're using the band or not using the band, we still need to keep an eye on our technique and the quality of our position. So as soon as you feel like that's going downhill too much, you need to pull back to a slightly easier variation and just build sets there. So for me, I need to be hanging around the straddle frog position for more working sets, and I really shouldn't be playing beyond that. But today we're pyramiding and I'm just gonna keep going because it's fun. So next I'm going to try straddle. Now the goal with straddle is to have a straight body, so feet, hips, shoulders all in line, still in that full protracted position, and not have a closed hip, high hip position. Now I'm probably going to be somewhere in between those two, but I'm just going to see how I go in the repetition and see how much I feel I can open up. So I wasn't totally happy with that hold. What I'm going to do on the next one is go with a slightly easier variation of the straddle and hold for a little bit longer. So let's try that again so I can get a cleaner hold there. Yeah, that was much cleaner from a time balance point of view, but wasn't quite so opened up. And when you start exploring these type of positions, you really need to start to understand or think about the amount of sets that you're doing. And the sets need to be relevant to the amount of time under tension. So if I'm only holding for 4 to 5 seconds, I need to do a lot more sets, maybe like 10 sets. But if I was getting 10 to 12 second holds, probably only need to do 6 sets. But some of that is going to be guesswork because you actually don't know the hold time you're going to get. So you could just try and ride the edge of it. So if you do a couple of really short holds, then do a couple of slightly longer holds with that easier variation. 2 ways to control that a little bit more is you could do like say 5 or 6 sets of working sets to start with at sensible position where you can get good time under tension, good quality technique, and then play around after that with some more advanced positions that don't really matter in terms of time under tension because you've already built up the time. Another way to do it is like a drop set, and that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to max out my planche. I'm even going to see if I can go towards that full planche. Realistically, the hold time is going to be like 1 second, 2 seconds, and I'm going to quickly go into an easier tuck variation and hold for 8 to 10 seconds. Nope, that wasn't very good, as expected, but this is nice and comfortable, so I'm just going to hold here for some time. Okay, one more set like that before I do some handstand, more dynamic versions. Oh no. Okay, now I'm going to go in some handstand variations. Now to do this, I'm going to stick my wide angle lens on. So now I'm just going to go through the same planche progressions, but I'm going to slow it down from a handstand position. So let's just warm the handstand up, make sure it's there. Hard with this is to come down, push into protraction at the right time, and then up towards the tuck planche and hold. So it's getting that timing right of the shoulders coming forwards, the feet coming backwards as you come down, as you roll the spine, as you push from that elevated scapular position to that protracted position. So it takes a little bit of time and understanding and playing around with to really get that. Now one way of doing it is to just move this back over here, and then you can walk down the wall. So even if you have a freestanding, you could hold for a few seconds there and then use the wall to help you feel that position and step into your planche. But both of those variations are pretty advanced. If you don't have a strong tuck planche, I wouldn't mess around with trying to go handstand to tuck planche, but you could do some handstand eccentric tuck presses, which is still going to work some of that protraction strength, start to build a really strong press-like movement. So you'd start in your straight handstand, come down through your tuck, round the back, and then finish in that position. And obviously to make it harder, you just go slower. To make it easier, you go faster, or you could go back to wall. Now I'm starting to feel a little bit fatigued in these sets, but I'm going to try and open up into a straddle planche as I come down. And then if that feels okay, I'll try one even harder, but we'll see how it goes. Not too bad. I'm going to try one more set in a full planche and just see how slow I can come down. Realistically, I'm not going to get any sort of hold, but if I can come down in a straight body all the way down and touch lightly on the floor, I'll be pleased with that. Nope, that's not happened today. Okay, so that's about 30 minutes. That's what I'd recommend you do, 20 to 30 minutes. Keep it as simplistic as possible. Make sure you're getting enough working sets done, enough time under tension. Video from the side, check where the hip is, check you've got full protraction. Use a slight band assist if you need to, but make sure that you're doing majority of the work. If you're after coaching, check out my links for my app and my website, and I'll speak to you next time. Thanks, guys.